guys, we're back. So nice to be here with you. It has been storming all day and now all night. And I'm recording this a little later than I would have liked to, but we're here and we made it. And I'm really excited about today's topic because this is something that I see play out in so many different areas, in so many different facets of life, for women especially. And the theme that I really want to speak to today is self-abandonment as this kind of hidden cost of success. But it could also be replaced with self-abandonment as the hidden cost of love, for example. There are so many ways that this piece around abandoning ourselves comes up in so many different forms. And I feel like it starts at a really early age. And I had a call with a client last week, and what came up was this feeling of, on the surface, it was this feeling of imposter syndrome. But when we really got to the root of it, what was really true was that she learned from a really young age that it wasn't safe to be herself. And so she started to cut off parts of herself in order to be liked, in order to be accepted, in order to be normal. And this simply continued on throughout her life into many different areas, and had this narrative within herself around who she thought she needed to be in order to be successful, in order to be and show up as a professional, in order to be a good mother, in order to be a good wife. You fill in the blank, right? There are so many different areas that this would infiltrate into and spill over into and impact so many different areas of her life, to a point where she started to feel really numbed out and shut off emotionally. And I can definitely relate, and was relating to her, because I for sure remember times in my journey where I felt that way. I felt very shut down emotionally, very numbed out, and honestly didn't know who I was. And those are real key signals that this may be a patterning where you've learned to abandon parts of yourself for whatever that belief is. I'm going to stick with, in the realm of women who are in business, women who are high achievers, women who are holding space for others to come into, where they're leading essentially. And this doesn't have to be business in the office space. I'm talking about leadership as a woman, and all of the perceptions around how they believe that they need to show up in order to be in that space. And so self-abandonment can be really sneaky and hidden. You know, at a young age, you may get feedback that you may be super excited about something, and you may bring your friend into it, and you may be really excited to share your excitement with them, and you share what you're excited about, and then they may respond by either shutting it down or saying that's weird or whatever. And then we create meaning from that. And maybe that meaning is that actually it's not safe for us to express in that way or to be creative in those kinds of ways. And so we start to really dim our light or not share all of ourselves with the people that we love and trust, because ultimately we don't want to be abandoned. So self-abandonment can come in many different forms, but where it may be showing up is where you're saying yes when you're really wanting to say no. And you may be saying yes because you fear what may be said, or judgment, or rejection, all of the possible outcomes that you perceive would happen if you actually said no. And this is when you're in that state of saying yes when you want to say no, you're abandoning your own needs in that moment. You're not listening to your body when it may be screaming no at you, but you're just saying yes. Your priority in that moment is you're thinking about just output versus what am I actually feeling? Can I honor that feeling and really pour into myself? And again, there's loads of stories around that may be perceived as being selfish or whatever the story is. But it can start really small and it can spill over into so many different areas. So think about that in your journey, and maybe you're in that place now where in the past have you said yes to something when actually you wanted to say no? Why did you say yes when you wanted to say no? What was the perceived threat, for example, of going through and setting that boundary and saying no? Because there will be something internally going on. And it would be really interesting if you could also track like any sensations that are coming up in the body as you're imagining saying no when your default is to say yes. Because the body will hold that emotion, will hold that tension until you're actually really ready to move through that and release that ultimately. I could create a whole other podcast on what happens further on down the line if we continue the pattern of saying yes when we want to say no. This is a really simple concept, but there are so many different ways that we can take it. Okay, I'm going to stay on point as much as possible. So why it can show up really predominantly in women, but this is not to say that men do not experience this, is that women have really been conditioned to nurture, to perform, to really earn value through overgiving and overextending. And again, I've heard this so many times with women that I begin to work with. It's like they give everything to everyone else and they have nothing left for themselves. So it's something that is conditioned in our society, in our environment from a really young age. And it also may be what we're modeling and have been modeling from our mothers and witnessing how they were towards us and so forth. So what does self-regulation look like instead? What does a new way of doing things look like? It's really moving in life from a felt sense versus force. It's being able to really restore boundaries without any shame or without any guilt over those boundaries, but really honoring where you're at and feeling confident and safe enough within yourself to actually communicate that and say, look, this is where my capacity is at. And creating that clarity not only creates such safety for you, but I guarantee you for the people that you lead will create so much safety for them as well, because they'll understand where you're at with everything and they won't be having to guess like, where is Simone at? Does she have capacity? Does she not have capacity? You know, where is she? And also knowing that it creates so much safety for them, because there's nothing better than knowing that if something is off, then someone will communicate it with you versus withholding, being silent, but you feel that energy is off and then you're guessing. Like that's not fun. No one enjoys being a part of that kind of team. So it's really coming back to claiming this rituals and a way of living versus routines, rigidity, control. A lot of high-performing women create insane daily routines that lead them to further disconnection, to further burnout, because it's centered around control. And it's centered around needing to tick something off versus, is this actual nourishment? Is this able to adapt with how I'm feeling? Am I able to flow and to have all these resources that I can pull from, but it's a way of living. It's not this rigidity that is based off fear and that is based off needing to control. And why regulation is really the only sustainable foundation for any success, whether that's in business, whether that's in leadership, whether that's in relationship, is because, well, first of all, there's no amount of strategy that can override dysregulation. If you're dysregulated, it is going to impact every area of your life, the way you show up, the choices you make, the way that you're communicating, the energy with which you're leading is going to be off because you're not connected with yourself. And when you're not connected and you are the source of what you're creating, it's going to have an impact on everything else. And you can't scale anything or grow anything when your nervous system is actually stuck in survival. And that's what happens when we are in that place of self-abandonment. We're really stuck in that survival state. And so we're wired. And a lot of people share how they end up in this place where they feel really wired but tired and they can't switch off, right? This is the survival mode. When you are feeling stuck, when you are looking and really focused on all the things that are wrong instead of what is right, that is a sign of being in survival mode. And there are really simple ways through somatic practices that you can actually start to really catch that in your day-to-day and then start to rewire that. This is why I love breath work. It's so incredibly powerful to actually shift that state in like 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be this like full-on ritual, although I love ritual as well. And really, it's coming back to honoring what is true for you and rebuilding that connection within yourself. Because when your nervous system actually feels safe, you are so magnetic. You are so magnetic. It is palpable when someone feels really safe within themselves. People are always drawn to those people because there's a level of safety that is created and a level of non-judgment as well. Like all is welcome here. And you actually feel so clear, so alive. And you create just because it's joyful to create. Like nothing feels like this force or this heavy lifting anymore. You may be doing the same things, but the feeling behind it when your nervous system is really regulated is totally different. So lots of food for thought. I would love to hear your experiences with maybe your own journey with reclaiming the parts of yourself that have been cut off or abandoned over the years. What has been your journey with that? And I can share so many ways that you can really call those parts of yourself back and really reclaim that. So let me know if that's something that you would like me to dive into on another day. I would be more than happy to. And share with me what your biggest takeaways are, what really landed for you, what sparked that curiosity. What have you got questions about? Again, I would love to hear from you. So sending you so much love, wishing you the most beautiful evening, and I will see you tomorrow.